When two office pranksters set up their coworker on a blind date, they thought they'd created the perfect humiliation, pairing a struggling single father with a woman they deemed unworthy of love, all for their entertainment. They positioned themselves in the corner with phones ready, expecting discomfort, awkward silence, and a quick exit that would give them months of material. But what unfolded instead was something they never saw coming. One man's choice to see past cruelty, to recognize pain because he'd lived it himself, would turn their ugly joke into the most beautiful beginning. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. The afternoon sun filtered through the hanging plants at Fireside Brews Cafe, casting dappled shadows across the wooden tables. Aidan Riley arrived at exactly 2 o'clock. The cafe smelled of fresh coffee and cinnamon, and soft acoustic music played from speakers tucked in corners. He chose a table with a view of the door, his leg bouncing under the table in a rhythm that matched his racing heart. 4 years. It had been 4 years since he'd done anything like this. He glanced at his phone. 2:03 p.m. Across the cafe, partially hidden behind newspapers that seemed oddly anachronistic for 2019, sat Jasper Lane and Kyle Patterson. Aidan noticed them, but thought nothing of it. Columbus wasn't that big. Running into coworkers on weekends happened.
At 2:05, the door opened. Aurora Hayes stepped inside, her blonde hair pulled back in a neat bun, wearing a dress that she'd probably changed 3 times before leaving her apartment. Aidan recognized her immediately. Elevator rides, passing in hallways, the occasional nod across the office cafeteria, and her eyes swept the cafe with a mixture of hope and barely concealed anxiety. When she spotted Aidan waving, something flickered across her face. Relief, confusion, fear. She approached slowly, clutching her purse like a shield. "Aidan?" Her voice was soft, uncertain. It's nice to officially meet you." Aidan stood immediately, pulling out her chair. "Please, sit down. Thank you for agreeing to meet me." She sat, and up close he could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands trembled slightly as she set her purse down. "I was surprised when I heard you'd asked about me. We've never really talked before." Something in her tone struck him. A warning bell. "Asked about you?" Aidan leaned forward slightly. "Aurora, I'm going to be honest with you. Jasper and Kyle set this up. They told me they had a friend who might be interested in coffee. They didn't tell me it was you specifically, though I'm glad it is." He watched the words land, watched understanding dawn in her eyes as she glanced toward the corner where Jasper and Kyle sat, phones angled just so. The blood drained from her face. "Oh," the word came out small, broken. "Oh, I see. They set this up as some kind of joke, didn't they?" Her eyes were filling with tears now, and her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Because of how I look." In the corner, Jasper elbowed Kyle, his phone positioned to capture the moment. This was it. The money shot, the awkward rejection, the humiliation, the story they'd tell at happy hours for months. But Aidan felt something entirely different coursing through him. Not embarrassment, anger. White-hot protective anger, the cruelty of it, at the casual way some people turned others' vulnerabilities into entertainment. He'd been on the receiving end of judgment too many times not to recognize it. "Aurora." His voice was firm but gentle. "Please look at me." She did, tears threatening to spill over. "Those guys are idiots, and I'm sorry they put you in this position. But I want you to know something. When I agreed to this coffee date, I was terrified. I haven't been on a date in 4 years. When I saw you walk in, do you know what my first thought was?" She shook her head, a tear escaping down her cheek. "I thought, she has kind eyes." He let that sit for a moment. "And my second thought was, she looks like someone who'd be patient with a guy who has no idea what he's doing. And my third thought was, I really hope I didn't wear the wrong thing." A laugh bubbled through her tears, small but genuine.
Aiden glanced toward the corner where Jasper and Kyle sat, then back to Aurora. His voice remained soft, but carried weight now. The kind of weight that comes from lived experience. I'm a single father to a 6-year-old daughter who is my entire world. 4 years ago, my wife walked out. Just left one morning with a note that said she couldn't do this anymore. The divorce papers came 3 months later, forwarded from California, where she'd moved for a career opportunity. Aurora's tears stopped, replaced by attention, by recognition of shared pain. When that happened, people made assumptions. Some thought I must have been a bad husband. Others assumed I couldn't possibly raise a little girl on my own. I'd overhear conversations at work. Poor guy, they'd say, like I was broken. Or worse, what did he do to make her leave? He paused, his jaw tight with the memory. So, I learned something important, Aurora. The only opinions that matter are the ones from people who take the time to know who you actually are. And right now, those 2 idiots in the corner, he didn't look at them, their opinions are worth exactly nothing. Aurora wiped her eyes with a napkin, her breathing steadying. I'm sorry about your wife, she said quietly. That must have been incredibly hard. Thank you. Aiden leaned back slightly, giving her space to breathe. And I'm sorry about today, about being pulled into whatever game they thought they were playing. But here's the thing, Aurora. We're already here. We both took time out of our Saturdays. He smiled, and it was genuine, reaching his eyes in a way that transformed his face from tired to warm. And I actually would really like to have coffee with you if you're willing to stay. Not because of them, not because of anything except that I genuinely like to get to know you. No pressure, no expectations, just 2 people who could probably both use a friend. The cafe seemed to hold its breath. In the corner, Jasper's satisfied smirk had faded. This wasn't going according to plan. Kyle shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware that other patrons were watching, that their phones and newspapers weren't as subtle as they'd thought. Aurora stared at Aiden for a long moment. He could see her weighing it. The risk of staying, of believing him, of opening herself up to potential hurt. But he could also see something else in her eyes. Hope. The fragile, tentative kind that's been beaten down but refuses to die completely. Finally, she smiled. A real, genuine smile that transformed her entire face. Okay, she said. Yes, I'd like that. And Aiden? She met his eyes directly. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for giving me a chance. They ordered coffee, a caramel latte for Aurora, black coffee for Aiden, and shared a plate of cranberry scones. The conversation that followed was easier than either expected, flowing naturally despite the awkward beginning. So, accounting. How'd you end up in that field? Aurora's eyes brightened, the way people's do when asked about something they genuinely care about. I love numbers. They're predictable, reliable. They always add up the way they're supposed to. Unlike people. Unlike people. Aiden echoed the weight behind those words. I've been with the company for 7 years, started in data entry, worked my way up to vendor relationships and invoice processing. It's not glamorous, but there's something satisfying about making everything balance, you know? About finding that one discrepancy and figuring out where it came from.
Like solving a puzzle. Exactly. She leaned forward, animated now. Every month is a new puzzle. And when everything reconciles at the end, when all the numbers line up perfectly, it's this little moment of, peace? Aiden found himself genuinely interested. What made you want to work with numbers in the first place? Aurora's smile turned slightly sad. In high school, I wasn't exactly popular. I spent a lot of time in the library, and I discovered I was really good at math. It was one thing I could control, one thing that didn't judge me based on how I looked. 2 + 2 always equals 4, whether you're pretty or not. The honesty of it hit Aiden hard. He set down his coffee cup. For what it's worth, I think you're beautiful. But more than that, I think people who judge books by their covers miss out on the best stories. Aurora's eyes welled up again, but these were different tears. Tell me about your daughter. What's her name? Delilah. She's 6 years old, and she's She's everything. This morning, I took her to ballet class. She's the smallest one there, but she makes up for it with enthusiasm. She spins in the wrong direction half the time, but she does it with complete confidence. Aurora laughed. She sounds precious. She has these mispronunciations that just kill me. She calls spaghetti paschetti and asks for animal crackers at snack time. Yesterday, she told me she wants to be an animal doctor when she grows up because our neighbor's cat had kittens. He paused, his expression softening with memory. She has a tea party every Sunday afternoon with her stuffed animals, complete with different voices and detailed conversations about who has the best manners. Does she know you're here today? I nodded. I dropped her off with my mom before coming here. We have a tradition, pinky promises for everything important. Before I left, she made me promise to pick her up after and get ice cream. I glanced at my watch, surprised to see it was past 3:30. Actually, I should probably text my mom that I'm running a bit late. Don't let me keep you if you need to go, Aurora said quickly. Oh, it's fine. Mom loves spending time with her. I just don't want to be rude. He sent a quick text, then pocketed his phone and looked back at Aurora with a question in his eyes. What do you do outside of work? Besides accounting magic, I mean.
I bake, Aurora's smile returned. Elaborate cakes, mostly. I taught myself through online videos and a lot of trial and error. Last month, I made a castle cake for my niece's birthday. 4 layers, fondant turrets, the whole thing. Took me an entire weekend, but her face when she saw it... She trailed off, eyes distant with the memory. That's what makes it worth it. That's incredible. I can barely manage box mix brownies without burning them. It's all about patience and following instructions. Kind of like raising a daughter, I imagine. Aiden laughed. If only Delilah tame with instructions. Sometimes I feel like I'm figuring it out as I go. Last week she asked me why the sky is blue, and I gave her this whole explanation about light wavelengths and atmosphere. She listened very seriously, then said, Daddy, I think it's blue because that's its favorite color. Smart kid. Too smart sometimes. She asks questions I don't have answers for, like why her mom left. That's the one I still don't know how to answer. There it was, the opening to the deeper story, the wound that hadn't fully healed. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, Aurora said gently. No, it's okay. It's part of who I am now. Aiden took a breath. Delilah was 2 when my wife left, just 2 years old. I came home from work one day and there was a note on the kitchen counter. I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. That was it. She'd packed her things while I was at work, while Delilah was at daycare. Didn't say goodbye to either of us. That's horrible. The first year was the hardest. Delilah kept asking when Mommy was coming home. How do you explain to a 2-year-old that Mommy chose to leave, that she chose something else over us? He blinked hard. Eventually, she stopped asking. Now she barely remembers her. Sometimes that feels like a blessing. Other times it breaks my heart all over again. They sat in silence for a moment, Aurora's hand still on his, both of them processing the weight of old wounds and new understanding. You're a good father, Aurora said finally. That's clear from how you talk about her. Some people would have been bitter, would have let that pain turn them cold. But you didn't. I had to be better. For her. She deserved a parent who chose her, who showed up every single day. I'm not perfect. I burn dinners sometimes. I forget to sign permission slips. I have no idea how to do French braids, but I'm there. That has to count for something. It counts for everything. 2 more hours passed without either of them noticing. Jasper and Kyle had left long ago, their joke having spectacularly backfired, their phones full of footage they'd never use. Other cafe patrons came and went. The afternoon sun shifted, casting golden light through the windows that made the whole cafe feel dreamlike. Aurora told Aiden about her love of mystery novels, how she'd read every Agatha Christie book twice, about her apartment filled with plants she talked to while she baked, about her sister's 3 kids who called her Auntie Rora and fought over who got to help her decorate cakes. Aiden shared stories about single parenthood,
The time Delilah's teacher called to say she'd been giving free hugs to anyone who looked sad, and how he'd been simultaneously mortified and proud. The morning she dressed herself for school in a tutu, rain boots, and a superhero cape, refusing to change because "this is my power outfit, Daddy." "She sounds like she has such a big heart," Aurora observed. "The biggest. Sometimes I worry it's too big, that the world will hurt her, but then I think maybe that's exactly what the world needs. More people like her who lead with love instead of fear."
As the cafe began to empty and the baristas started wiping down tables, Aiden realized he didn't want this to end. Not yet. Maybe not ever. "Aurora," he said, his voice slightly nervous again, "would you want to do this again? Maybe next time we could actually get dinner?" Hope bloomed across Aurora's face. "I'd really like that, Aiden. I'd like that a lot. And eventually, no pressure, only when you're comfortable, I'd like you to meet Delilah, if that's something you'd be open to. I'd be honored." They exchanged numbers, fingers fumbling slightly with phones as they saved each other's contacts. As they walked out of Fireside Brew's cafe, the evening air cool against their faces, Aiden felt something he hadn't experienced in 4 years. Hope. Not the desperate kind that clings to any possibility, but the quiet, steady kind that says, maybe, just maybe, good things are still possible. Monday morning arrived with the subtlety of a freight train. Aiden walked into the office at his usual time, coffee in hand, mentally preparing for the fallout from Saturday. He didn't have to wait long. Jasper and Kyle were already at their desks, but something was different. They kept their heads down, avoided eye contact. The usual morning banter was conspicuously absent. By 10 o'clock, whispers had spread through the entire office. Multiple coworkers had been at Fireside Brews that Saturday. They'd witnessed the setup, watched Aiden's response, and seen the cruel joke transform into something else entirely. And unlike Jasper and Kyle, these coworkers had phones too, and Instagram accounts, Facebook pages, Twitter feeds.
By lunchtime, Mrs. Wallace called Jasper and Kyle into her office. Aiden was at his desk reviewing shipping manifests when he heard raised voices through the closed door. Mrs. Wallace's voice, though muffled, carried the unmistakable tone of severe disappointment. 20 minutes later, both men emerged looking pale. "Aiden?" Mrs. Wallace called from her doorway. "Could I see you for a moment?" Aiden set down his coffee and headed to her office, uncertain what to expect. "Close the door, please." Mrs. Wallace gestured to a chair. She was in her 50s, a no-nonsense woman who'd been with the company for 2 decades. "I want to apologize. I encouraged you to go on that date last week without knowing the full context. I've since learned about the prank that was planned." "It's okay, Mrs. Wallace. It actually turned out it's not okay." Her voice was firm. "What those two did was harassment, not just of you, but of Ms. Hayes in accounting. I've spoken with HR, and effective immediately, both Jasper Lane and Kyle Patterson are being reassigned to different teams. They'll also be receiving formal warnings in their personnel files." Aiden wasn't sure what to say. "I appreciate that, but honestly, I'm not upset. If anything, I'm grateful. That date was the best thing that's happened to me in years." Mrs. Wallace's stern expression softened slightly. "I'm glad something good came from it, but that doesn't excuse their behavior. Sometimes the right thing happens despite people's worst intentions, not because of them." "That's actually a really good point. Now get back to work. Those manifests won't review themselves."
2 weeks later, Aiden and Aurora had their second date. This time, dinner at a small Italian restaurant downtown. And this time, Delilah came along. Aiden had been nervous about it, had spent an hour trying to explain to his 6-year-old daughter that Miss Aurora from Daddy's work was coming to dinner, and it was very important that Delilah be on her best behavior. Delilah had listened with solemn attention, then asked, "Is Miss Aurora your girlfriend?" "We're friends," Aiden had said carefully. "Good friends, and I'd like you to meet her." "Does she like Paschetti?" I don't know, sweetheart. We'll have to ask her. Now, sitting in a corner booth at Mama Rosa's, Aiden watched as Aurora and Delilah met for the first time. Aurora had arrived early, looking nervous. Delilah had burst through the door in her typical fashion, backpack bouncing, pigtails slightly askew, chattering before she'd even reached the table. "Miss Aurora, Daddy says you work with numbers and make really good cakes. I like cakes. Last birthday I had a princess cake with pink flowers, but next birthday I want a unicorn cake with rainbow colors and maybe glitter if that's okay." Aurora laughed, genuine and delighted. "A unicorn cake sounds absolutely perfect. What's your favorite color for the main?" "Purple. No, wait, blue. No, actually all the colors." "All the colors it is." They ordered dinner, paschetti for Delilah, chicken Alfredo for Aurora, lasagna for Aiden, and the conversation flowed naturally. Delilah regaled Aurora with stories from ballet class, complete with detailed demonstrations of her twirls that nearly knocked over a water glass. She explained her theory about why grass is green, because it would be silly if it was polka dots. She asked Aurora 16 questions in rapid succession about baking, listening to each answer with rapt attention.
And then, Miss Aurora, Delilah said seriously, her eyes wide and earnest, I did a twirl and my tutu went whoosh, and everyone clapped, even though I bumped into Lily a little bit, but it was an accident. Aurora leaned in, matching Delilah's serious expression. Was Lily okay? Oh, yes, she laughed. We're friends. Sometimes friends bump into each other, and that's okay. That's very wise, Delilah. Aiden watched them interact, his heart doing something complicated in his chest. Aurora engaged with Delilah completely, never patronizing, never dismissive. She asked follow-up questions. She laughed at Delilah's jokes. She listened, really listened, in a way that made her daughter beam with importance. After dinner, while Delilah excused herself to use the bathroom with a nearby server keeping an eye out, Aurora turned to Aiden. She's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. She likes you, I can tell. How can you tell? She's already planning your next conversation, that's her tell. When she likes someone, she starts making plans. He smiled. Also, she hasn't mentioned her mom once. Usually when she meets new women, she gets quiet. But with you, she's just herself. That's the best compliment I could receive. 3 months into dating, Aurora came to Delilah's dance recital. She sat in the audience between Aiden and his mother Carol, watching his 6-year-olds in pink tutus perform to Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Delilah was in the second row, her honey-brown pigtails bouncing as she executed her routine. She nailed every step until the final arabesque when she wobbled slightly, but recovered with such determination that the audience couldn't help but applaud. Aurora cheered the loudest. She was on her feet before the music even ended, clapping so hard her hands turned red. Afterwards, Delilah ran to them, her face flushed with excitement. Did you see my jumps and my twirl?" "You were magnificent," Aiden said. "Magnificent," Delilah repeated carefully, practicing the big word. "That means absolutely wonderful," Aurora added, kneeling to Delilah's height. "You worked so hard, and it showed. I'm so proud of you." Delilah threw her arms around Aurora's neck, a spontaneous gesture of pure affection. Over his daughter's shoulder, Aurora met Aiden's eyes, and he saw tears there, happy ones this time.
For Delilah's 7th birthday in November, Aurora outdid herself. She spent an entire weekend creating an elaborate unicorn cake, 4 tiers, fondant mane in every color Delilah had requested, edible glitter that sparkled under the lights, and a chocolate horn wrapped in gold leaf. When Delilah saw it, she screamed, an actual joy-filled scream that had every parent at the party covering their ears and laughing. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," Delilah breathed, her eyes wide as saucers. "Miss Aurora, you're magic." "Not magic, sweetie, just practice and a lot of love. Can we take a picture with it before we cut it? I want to remember it forever." They took about 30 pictures, Delilah posing with the cake from every angle, Aurora and Delilah together, Aiden joining them, even a few with all the party guests. The cake was almost too beautiful to eat. Almost. Winter came, bringing snow and weekend traditions. Aurora joined Aiden and Delilah for their Saturday morning pancake breakfasts. She taught Delilah how to identify birds at the park,
Cardinals, blue jays, robins. They built snowmen in Aiden's small backyard, complete with carrot noses and scarves. One February evening, after Delilah had gone to bed, Aiden and Aurora sat on his couch, hot chocolate warming their hands. "She asked me something today," Aurora said softly, "when you were loading the dishwasher." "What did she ask?" "She wanted to know if I was staying. Not just for the day, if I was staying with you, with both of you." Aiden's heart thumped hard. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that I hoped so, that I cared about both of you very much, and that if you'd have me, I'd like to be part of your family." Aurora looked at him, vulnerability written across her face. "Was that okay? I didn't want to overstep."
Aiden set down his mug and took her hands in his. "Aurora, you're not overstepping. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. I know we've only been doing this for a few months, but it feels right. You feel right. Here with us." "I love her," Aurora whispered. "I know that might be too soon to say, but I do, and I love you. I love you too. So much." They kissed, soft and sweet, the kind of kiss that promises tomorrow and the day after that and all the days beyond that. 1 year after that first coffee date, Aiden and Aurora returned to Fireside Brews Cafe. Delilah was at a sleepover with her best friend Emma, giving them a rare evening alone. They sat at the same table where they'd met, ordered the same drinks, caramel latte and black coffee, and shared a plate of cranberry scones. "Do you ever think about that day?" Aurora asked, stirring her latte. "About how terrible it could have been?" "I think about how close I came to missing out on the best thing that ever happened to me. Well, second best. Delilah's still number one." Aurora laughed, as she should be. "But here's what I really think about," Aiden continued, his voice taking on weight. "Those guys thought they were teaching us a lesson about knowing our place, about limiting our expectations. They wanted to prove that people like you and me should stay in our lanes, accept the cruelty of the world as inevitable. But what they actually did was give two people who deserved happiness a chance to find it." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "They thought they were exposing something ugly. Instead, they revealed something beautiful. They revealed that kindness is stronger than cruelty, that choosing to see someone, really see them, can change everything."
Aurora squeezed his hand, tears welling in her eyes, but these were tears of joy, not pain. "You know what Delilah told me yesterday?" "What?" "She said, 'Miss Aurora, you're not my daddy's girlfriend anymore. You're my bonus mommy.' She learned that term from a book at school about different kinds of families." Aiden felt his own eyes water. "What did you say?" "I told her that was the greatest honor anyone had ever given me. Because it's true, Aiden. She's my bonus daughter. You're both my family now. The family I never thought I'd have." "Will you marry me?" The question came out before Aiden had fully planned it, spontaneous and raw and absolutely right. He hadn't brought a ring, hadn't prepared a speech, but sitting in this cafe where everything began, with the woman who'd changed his and his daughter's lives, it felt like the only question that mattered. Aurora's tears spilled over. Yes, yes, absolutely yes. They kissed across the table, both of them crying now, both of them laughing, both of them aware that other cafe patrons were watching and probably wondering what had just happened. When they finally pulled apart, Aurora wiped her eyes and smiled. "We should probably call Delilah. She'll want to know. She's going to lose her mind, in the best way." Aiden pulled out his phone and dialed. Emma's mom answered, then passed the phone to Delilah. "Daddy, is everything okay? Did you eat good dinner?" "Everything's perfect, sweetheart. Miss Aurora and I have some news. We want to tell you together, okay?" Aiden put the phone on speaker and set it on the table between them. "Hi, Delilah," Aurora said, her voice thick with emotion. "Your daddy just asked me a very important question."
"What question?" Delilah's voice rose with excitement. "Was it about cake? Is he going to make you another cake?" They both laughed. "Not about cake, honey. He asked me to marry him, to be part of your family officially." Silence on the other end. Then, Does that mean you'll live with us? Forever and ever? If that's okay with you, Aurora said gently. I know it's a big change. Are you kidding? That's the best news ever. Emma, guess what? My bonus mommy is going to be my real mommy, too. Well, my other real mommy. I have the most mommies of anyone. They could hear Emma shrieking in the background, Delilah's excited chatter continuing in a rush of words. Finally, Emma's mom came back on. I take it congratulations are in order. They are, Aiden confirmed. Thank you for watching her tonight. Our pleasure, though I should warn you, they're both so hyped up now, I doubt either of them will sleep. After they hung up, Aiden and Aurora sat in comfortable silence watching the river flow past through the cafe windows. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. You know, Aurora said softly, a year ago, I walked through that door expecting humiliation, expecting to be the punchline of someone's cruel joke. And instead, I found home. Aiden pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. We both did. 6 months later, on a sunny May afternoon, Aiden and Aurora got married in a small ceremony at a park by the river. Delilah served as flower girl, taking her duties so seriously that she counted each petal as she dropped it down the aisle. She wore a white dress with sparkles and had insisted on wearing her favorite sneakers underneath, just in case we need to run. The guest list was small: Aiden's mother Carol, Aurora's sister and her family, close friends from work, and a few neighbors who'd watched their love story unfold over the past 18 months.
When Aurora walked down the aisle, Delilah whispered loudly, "Daddy, she looks like a princess!" She does, sweetheart. She absolutely does. They wrote their own vows. Aurora promised to always save Delilah the biggest piece of cake, to attend every dance recital no matter how busy life got, and to love them both through every season. Aiden promised to see Aurora exactly as she was, beautiful, brilliant, irreplaceable, and to build a life where none of them ever felt invisible again. When the officiant pronounced them married, Delilah cheered so loud that nearby birds took flight. At the reception, held in a restaurant overlooking the river, Aiden gave a toast. A wise person once told me that sometimes the right thing happens despite people's worst intentions, not because of them. My wife and I, he paused, savoring those words, we're proof of that. Two people thought they could make us feel small, but what they didn't realize is that kindness is stronger than cruelty, that choosing to show up with grace, choosing to see someone when the world tries to make them invisible, that's where real love begins. He looked at Aurora, then at Delilah, who was spinning in circles in her flower girl dress, making it flare out. We're a family built on truth, on choosing each other every single day, on understanding that love isn't about finding someone perfect, it's about finding someone who chooses to stay even when things are hard, especially when things are hard. Aurora stood, joining him. And to everyone here, thank you for celebrating this with us. Thank you for being part of our story. Delilah tugged on Aurora's dress. Can I say something too? Of course, sweetheart. Delilah climbed onto a chair so everyone could see her. I just want to say that I have the best bonus mommy in the whole world. She makes the best cakes, she knows all the bird names, and she gives really good hugs, and I love her so much. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. As the evening wound down and fairy lights twinkled overhead, Aiden, Aurora, and Delilah stood together by the river. The same river that had flowed past Fireside Brews Cafe 18 months ago, witness to a cruel joke that became the most beautiful beginning. Are you happy, Daddy? Delilah asked, holding both their hands. Happier than I ever been, Pumpkin. Me too. This is the best family ever. Aurora knelt down, pulling Delilah into a hug. You know what the best part is? We chose each other. Every single one of us chose this. That's what makes it special. Delilah thought about this seriously, then nodded. Yeah, choosing is important, like when I choose chocolate ice cream instead of vanilla. It's better, because I picked it. They laughed, the sound carrying across the water, mixing with the evening breeze and the soft murmur of celebration behind them. Sometimes the best love stories don't start with love at first sight or grand romantic gestures. Sometimes they start with a choice a choice to see past cruelty, to recognize pain because you've lived it yourself, to extend grace when the world expects judgment. Sometimes they start with two broken people finding out they fit together perfectly. With a 6-year-old girl who has room in her heart for everyone who loves her daddy. With a single father who learned that his worth isn't determined by who chose to leave, but who chooses to stay. And sometimes the best love stories start in a cafe on an ordinary Saturday afternoon when someone decides that the only opinions that matter are the ones from people who take the time to know who you really are. Aiden, Aurora, and Delilah walked back to their celebration, hand in hand in hand, a family that wasn't supposed to exist, but did anyway. Beautiful, imperfect, and absolutely real. Because at the end of the day, that's what love is. Choosing to show up, choosing to stay, choosing to see someone exactly as they are, and deciding that's more than enough. It's always been more than enough.